Hello and welcome to the first episode of Autonomy Pods. Now, actually, I recorded, I don't know, maybe 10 episodes about 6 months ago. When Autonomy was just starting, I thought, I'll do a podcast. I'll talk shit on it, and I'll educate people, and I'll get my message out there. And then things got really, really busy with either COVID, the lockdowns, or the business itself. And I ended up thinking that it wasn't a good idea. However, since that time, things have changed massively. I've moved 2 different apartments, 2 different countries, and have a full-fledged business now. And autonomy is getting out to the masses. So, and in that time, we've also had the development of the fitness podcast with Emily and Kunal, which has gone really, really well. So it's time to bring on Autonomy's singular version of that too, which will probably be a little bit different than the just the wise old crack that we have with just a bunch of mates talking about random topics. But actually, this will be more about sharing the journey, sharing the insights, and also trying to get the message of autonomy out there as best as possible. Both this will be on YouTube, will be on iTunes, will be on Spotify, and we're trying to get as much exposure for autonomy as possible, just simply because it's a message worth shouting about. So in this first episode, I want to go through the journey of why autonomy made the way it is, the struggles, the triumphs, what happened, how it happened, and ultimately the gift that it's trying to give to everybody within the fitness industry, but also outside of the fitness industry. It transcends to just people wanting to feel and look better and do it repeatedly so that they can do it time and time and time again. So ultimately, autonomy was born out of a principle of my own failings. As most businesses and most entrepreneurs have a specific problem point that they particularly they got on with in the years, whether it's in the fitness industry or whatever, and they try and solve that particular problem for that time period. Whether it's how cars were invented, or faster automobiles, or finding a problem like internet banking or internet shopping, they're all things where people thought, okay, we can do this because it's making our life easier, it's better, it's solving a problem. And for me, the quest of what quote unquote autonomy is about is achieving this long-term weight maintenance and ensuring that people can go through a coaching process and be able to come out the other end with the skills and the tools to be able to keep the weight off afterwards. Now, I've been through coaches and coaches and coaches, and to my own downfall, I was not in a state or in a place of where I got the desired needs I wanted to keep off the weight in the long term. I went through yo-yo dieting and rebounds, and ultimately getting myself in a worse place with food, a worse place with my relationship with myself. And it just resulted in this forever battle of yo-yo dieting and trying to keep my weight off and never succeeding, to the point where I really got, I spent the last 10 years effectively trying to build this for what is now autonomy, this problem and now the solution. So, when I first was struggling with my weight, you never really understand that dieting and then your relationship with food and your relationship with yourself and your relationship that you have around you, or the environment, or your parents, or what you're saying to yourself, all of those things really come together and compound to affecting whether you actually stay in shape or not. Now, for me, when I was back in the day, I didn't realize that food was, in quote unquote, called a coping mechanism. I just thought food was, what people did daily. They eat the way that kind of they wanted to, and body fat wasn't really a thing. As I grew up, I started to care about what girls thought about me, and therefore I started looking after my appearance because I thought that was the thing I needed to do. And over time, you start looking at going to the gym and looking a bit trimmer for summers, and it's not until you maybe flirt around in a few cycles of this where you lose a bit of weight, and then you enjoy the specific celebratory point of getting to that specific goal, lose 5 kilos, lose 10 kilos, just look better for holiday, whatever it is. And then you end up being back in the cycle of you going back around and you're back at there again, and you're back to where you were before. And for a long time, that plagued me to a point of where I was coming to weekends and just eating, overeating, and then thinking on Monday, fantasizing on a Sunday and negotiating with myself on how I was going to do a diet, and that this week that would take care of all my problems. And it isn't until I started coaching other people, and it isn't until I started really breaking down that fundamental part, that I wasn't the only person thinking like that. I wasn't the only person negotiating in my mind whether I should have these pack of biscuits or whether it was a good idea or a bad idea, or fuck it, I should be eating it or I shouldn't be eating it. And that plagued me for a long time. And to be honest, like if I catch myself on a bad day, it still happens now. But that negotiation part, that ability to kind of have larger frequent intervals without it actually affecting me, is now greater because of the strategies I've put in place and learned over my last arduous 10 years of trying to get stuff better for myself. And through going through cycles of this, learning from others, trying to build upon the foundations of what the fitness industry is about, it has led me to a point that autonomy needed to be born, whether I was thrust into the decision because of my, where I was working previously and how I was working and what that did. But, I'd always wanted and always had in my brain that I wanted to help people. I wanted to, help people that were struggling with the same way that I did. And one of my biggest purposes is making sure that people never get misinformed. So a lot of the way that I come across sometimes can be quite blunt and can quite be obnoxious, but it's not because I'm trying to do so. It's actually because I don't want people to be misled. And the best way to kind of not make people misled and stop that in its tracks is kind of confront it straight away so that people can have a conversation about why potentially that isn't the right thing, or, stop them in their tracks of kind of, going down the route of thinking certain patterns of when it's not actually really at all even responsible for those variables. So when my mission is to help people in those factors never get in the same position I had, I don't want anyone to go into the point where they've spent the last 10 years yo-yo dieting, or spent in the last 5 years trying to stay in shape long term, or even just hold it on after the diet. I thought there needs to be someone, and there needs to be like a beacon and a shining light for that longer term journey. And it wasn't until probably recently that I realized that the impact of what autonomy has in its multitude of ways. I've been blessed and been lucky to be in a position of where I can help, and we can help general population, the normal individuals that can afford the coaching, and then equally thrust into a position of being able to help coaches who equally haven't been led in the right manner, the same as what the general population haven't been led. They're not informed in the right manners unless they've been through the trials and tribulations themselves. And even if they're through the trials and tribulations, they may have not come outside the other end. So even when those coaches are helping their own clients, they're doing it from like the blind leading the blind perspective for the most part, and expecting better results. So I've been lucky enough to be, and we are now lucky enough with autonomy, and I'm sure it will only get bigger, to be able to be thrust into these scenarios, to be able to spread that light and be the beacon. So, I want these podcasts to be something in which you see the triumphs, you see the failures, and see the successes that happen after failure, and spread the message of what we're about and how we're going to do that. There are people in this industry, a lot of my friends who, you are the summation of the people that are around you. And a lot of my friends are doing very, very similar things with their own businesses. Now that they've also gone through their own trials and tribulations, they've also seen potentially what autonomy are doing, and they've seen what some other companies are doing from a long-term perspective. And now they're shifting their message and doing more towards this long-term weight maintenance problem. Because ultimately, the UK doesn't have a fat loss problem. Like, everyone's lost 5 to 10 kilos, or everyone's lost a few kilos, whether it's incidental or it's purposeful using dirtbag diet methods like Cambridge diet, or the stoop and bread diet, or just like the gallon of milk a day diet, or just calorie counting, which is fine. But there's God knows so many dog shit ways of doing that everyone can lose weight, but it's about what happens the day after the diet, the week after the diet, the year after the diet, the 5 years after the diet. Because ultimately, if you're going to put a shift in, which everyone does, you put a shift in to lose the weight. It's not easy changing your habits. It's not easy taking control and taking ownership of your day. It's one thing that I really, really lacked when I was trying to figure this out myself. I didn't realize what ownership meant. I didn't realize what responsibility meant. I didn't realize what choice meant, because I'd always lived off autopilot. I'd always lived off, bending over backwards for other people, and never really knowing what it was to take the wheel of the car per se. So being able to now go into the biggest problem area, which is that, like I said, people don't have a weight fat loss problem because everyone's lost weight, but it's the weight maintenance problem of the UK, of the world, of like just the global standards. That is really my attention and what I'm going to, and I am taking responsibility for, and in my own effect. Like, am I going to affect everybody on this planet? No, but I'm going to affect as many people as I can, because impact is important, mission is important, and ultimately, if I don't take responsibility, then who is? So, being able to have this longer term view, being able to have people that stay in shape and are happy with the way that they look and not guilty come around Monday morning, and then not constantly thinking about how I need to eat the chicken salad, or how I need to cut back, or I don't look at my best, so then I'm going to go on a diet. Like, these are all things and common problems that each individual will face when they're faced with what happens next. Because what happened next, or what does happen next, is more after the diet. It's more about a fundamental mindset shift. It's a lifestyle shift. It's an incorporation back into the wild shift, because dieting puts specific constraints on you. I'm dieting, so therefore I am. And whilst you may not hit it 100% every single day, and whilst you may have the odd bits and have days where you are shit, because everyone is shit. Like, at some point you're gonna your shit stinks much as mine does, and mine stinks very much, and you'll have your up and down days. And as much as you will have your up and down days, and as much as you will could be better and you could be 100%, there will be a point in which you're bound by that mindset of that I'm in a diet, so therefore I can, or I'm in a diet, so therefore I can't. Now, what happens is, when you've made habits, when you've made your rules around your head, because rules create order, and then order creates a lack of chaos, which is absolutely fantastic for the human brain, is that when you've created these rules based on a pedestal of I'm in a diet, so therefore I'm going to create this rule. I'm in the diet, so therefore I'm going to do these amount of steps. I'm in a diet, so therefore I'm going to do this and say yes or no to X, Y, and Z. When you're out of that diet, that pedestal falls, and you almost have to start rebuilding again. Now, I didn't realize this until recently. We're talking like 18 months. Because every single time I diet, and I get my clients to diet, there would always be an inverting point, unless they were really shit scared about the gaining their weight back. And I mean super, super scared. It's not like just a small amount of, I'm concerned that I might gain it back, because they're the same people that will go and have double burger and chips and 5 pints after they've done a photo shoot, or they'll go and take the piss a little bit there, but genuinely fear, where they're like, I don't want to increase my calories any day after my shoot, just in case I gain, or the day after my diet, because I'm fearful of losing weight. Though, apart from those people, there will be a point of where you've done something for a specific goal and a desired result, and that will be the diet. And once that pedestal falls, you're effectively starting your rule-based, your habit-based, and your fundamental reasons why you're doing it again. And it's a hard, tough nut to crack, because unless you are aware of that, you'll just see it as unmotivated. I don't know what my next goal is. I'm kind of not dieting anymore, so I don't have this drive. And then you'll see this large amounts of chaos. So it'll be large amounts of like, I'll just have this, or, oh no, don't worry about that, or I just won't prep my food this week, or I don't have a structure now, I don't have a routine, because there's no reason why you should, because every reason why was done because of that diet. So when we're looking at fundamentally putting people into this maintenance phase, and fundamentally putting people at this weight management solution, there has to be that fundamental underpinning of why they're currently doing that. That diet, and the why of the diet, needs to be replaced for a higher level of purpose and mission that they're going to work towards daily, something bigger than themselves. Because goals and tangible targets are great, and you need them to kind of keep you going and reflecting and having the gratitude of understanding where you're going from and to. But you also need something that is going to not be hit by the volatility of goals, because volatility of goals, it comes from having, like, there's an emotional attachment that comes with them. But let's say if you change your emotional state, or you change your situation, or you change something around you, Then you then change your goals, and your targets will reflect that. And then your then actions and your routines and your systems and what you say yes and what you say no to will also change, because you've changed that goal and how volatile they are. Like the amount of times I've started a diet and been like, yeah, this sounds great. And then a week and a half in, I'd be like, actually, this is the wrong time to diet, because that emotional state is volatile. And I probably wasn't aware that I was trying to diet for some stupid reason that wasn't really important to me. Well, it's only when you start going through that target and goal and go, oh, no, I'm going up the wrong ladder. Let me turn back down the ladder and go up the next one. So you almost need to fundamentally change that lower part of the diet, the reasons why you're doing certain things. Like if you're only doing 10,000 steps every day now because you're doing it for fat loss, you need to make sure that when you go into this maintenance phase, when you go into this weight management solution, you're fundamentally changing the reasons why you do stuff. And that comes from understanding what is important to you, what you're going to drive towards now, and then how that is impacting your day. Like, it's not really uncommon for people that are, it's easy with entrepreneurs and people that have run a business, because they have this all impending thing that if they don't show up every day, it goes to shit, right? So it's really easy to show within an entrepreneurial purpose. And let's say, for example, mine, when I started looking into purpose and mission, was the same time that I started figuring this shit out from an autonomy perspective. And in those moments of where you're like, if I don't eat well or I don't train very well, that does affect the way I am as a human. Like, I'm a bit of a dickhead if I don't train or eat well, because I'm either in a mood, I don't like the way I look, so that changes the way that I act. And sometimes my knee's in pain because I've done too much exercise and I don't control these variables. So for me, the purpose of now training, the purpose of looking after my nutrition, the purpose of the way that I look, and the purpose of the way that I do my things, whether that's wake up, do my journaling, spend 30 minutes learning Spanish, or do this reading, it has this higher purpose. Because if I don't perform well, my business will go to shit, or it won't be as good as what it is. And almost this is a really good example of how you create that higher purpose, and you find this intent that you're having with your day. And I know this may be super, super deep for the first autonomy pod, but I want to set it off with the tone, is that ultimately the weight management problem that people are having is down to creating a reason why and a driver to do this thing, nutrition steps, routine, strategy, a reason to keep pushing forwards every single day and every single week and every single month and every single year, regardless of whether it's a successful day or a shit day or you've had an absolute stinker. And once you find that driver, that intent, that mission, that purpose, that reason why, outside of a goal of just volatility or I just want to look better, you'll find something that is worth driving for, that is a long-term play. And it might sound hippie and clappy and sappy, and it's fucking wanky, and I hate it, that the fact is that I have to talk about it, because it makes me feel like I don't want it to be this way. But ultimately, these things are really important in making sure people actually adhere and stay on a weight maintenance solution. I've never met anybody that has ever been able to maintain their weight or been able to keep within a good constraint of body weight and have fruitful training and have a positive relationship with their food and positive relationship with themselves, if they haven't had some form of this view, whether they knew it or not. A lot of people just fall into this camp of doing it innately, where they just have this, they know that if they eat shit food, then they feel like shit and they'd rather not. That's the same expression. They've took themselves and said, I would rather not feel X way if I treat my body like X and Y and Z. And that's the same as the mission and purpose intent I speak about consciously, because all I'm doing is I'm not of that train of thought, and I couldn't have got that just habitually, because I was a fat guy at heart. I love nailing a pack of biscuits, and it doesn't make me feel any worse. In fact, eating a pack of biscuits, the Lotus biscuits, makes me feel fucking amazing. But I need to remind myself that me eating that packet of biscuits isn't serving Nathan tomorrow and the actions of what he's trying to achieve. Having a few of the biscuits, however, would go down a treat within those constraints that you've had. So I'm not of the this happened by chance matrix. This happens via lots of conscious thoughts. And if I can do it ultimately, then anyone else can do it, because I believe that I was such in a shit place when it comes to the relationship with food, yo-yo dieting, and the reason why autonomy was born. And I think that with anything, right, is that when something is born out of a high level of frustration, a high level of like guilt and feeling of like struggle, it's always worth its weight in gold. Anything that came easy for people was never worth having. And autonomy and the weight management solution problem, the weight management problem of the world could do with this. So as much as we will dive into further details of how that happens to other people, and for most people, it'll be a case of slowly learning this. Now, it's not something I throw onto people straight away. It's not, this is what the podcast is for. It's not something I will push onto people even directly, because I think that you have to get to a point within your journey that you ask yourself, well, is this it? And it's the same as level of fulfillment with like your job and stuff. Like you'll always get, or you may get, that perfect car that you want. You'll reach a financial threshold. You'll get the house that you wanted. You'll get the dog. You'll get the girl of your dreams or husband of your dreams. You'll get that ring. You'll get that iPhone. You'll get that holiday in the world, the one that you've been picking out of magazines for years and 10 years. And then all of a sudden, anything that goes in that matrix, you'll be like, yeah, but now what? As much as there may be some gratitude there may be that period of appreciation. If you do that enough and you have it enough, it'll be the next thing. That's why, the more money you have, the more problems you have, because you can spend more of it, but you still fall into this ever flowing, what next, what next, what next, what next? And ultimately, that's where purpose, mission, and intent comes in, because that solves the what next. Because it's not about what next, it's about what now, and what am I doing either to help other people, help myself, and what am I working towards? These things, the gratification processes of the way that we look, the way that the car that we have, the house that we have, all these variables will all lead into what next? What next? I've got this. Okay, cool. But what now? And that's the same with the dieting phase. People will achieve the diet that they thought was going to solve all their problems, and actually doesn't solve any of their problems apart from being a little less unconfident in the clothes, having treated their body a little bit better, got a better relationship with themselves, seen that they were possible to do something. But then at the same time, they're still like, okay, well, what next? What now? And that's where people fall in that trap of not knowing what to do next. And that's where you shift the focus from, the diet being that pedestal, or that specific entity of tangible goal being the pedestal, and you move it onto something that is more forever and indefinite, or infinite, shall we say. So, autonomy was born out of a frustration of me not being able to get my shit together, and being able to have a weight management solution afterwards. It's oddly great to see that my hard work and frustrations and things that I really, really struggle with is something that people aren't struggling with now. So over the next couple of podcasts, we are going to delve into those specific things that I believe will create a weight management solution for the long term, whether that's identifying that driver, that mission and purpose, intent, the reason to do these things daily over and over again and continue to practice, all the way to what specific strategies and tactics do you need to negate and navigate specific situations that will often creep up as the stinkers, or the things that will often move you away or back into that yo-yo dieting cycle. And once we can cover all of those, even if you're not coaching with autonomy and you're wanting to lose a bit of weight, you should have a clear idea of what you're working toward next. And that's all I want to pass on. I want to pass on those that are doing this through, talking to my own clients or our clients as a company, and seeing what they're doing in the next steps and how they're navigating those specific troubles, what I've done in the past, the skills, the tactics, the strategies that I can pass on to you guys, and ultimately sharing all of those things along the way. So that was episode 1. And I hope you understand why we're doing what we're doing now. It's about creating a weight management solution and something that is going to last forever, or at least put the client in the driving seat, or the person in the driving seat, that'll allow them to make a decision what body weight they stay at, or how their relationship with food is, or what they do from a training perspective in the future. Because we shouldn't operate out of guilt, out of feeling like we have to. Everything should be a case of, I want to go and do this. And even if it's a struggle, even if it's something that requires a lot of discipline, it should be a case of, I want to have this decision to make this hard for myself because of the benefit. All right. I want to have the decision to not be guilty around food intake at the weekends and come back into a yo-yo dieting on a Monday. Or I want to have the decision to not be thinking about, oh, what's the lowest calorie thing on the menu, only to have, 3 desserts because I felt so restricted. Autonomy means control. And I want people to have their control of their health and fitness for good, forever. And that's what we're trying to work towards. So, guys, tune in next week for episode number 2, and see you next week.